Hi guys, thank you so much for tuning into Amy's Crypt in anticipation of the new horror movie which comes out today, Annabelle Comes Home. I decided I would sit you guys down and talk all about the infamous Annabelle doll. What makes this doll so scary, the true story behind Annabelle, and how Annabelle has killed before. So get ready. Now you guys probably all know Annabelle pretty well from the Conjuring franchise of films, and I love these movies. They've portrayed Annabelle as this really creepy looking puppet type doll, and it really gives you chills. And in contrast to the actual real life Annabelle, these dolls look totally different. The real Annabelle is actually this kind of cute little Raggedy Ann doll, but in a way I actually think that this Raggedy Ann looks creepier than the one depicted in the movie, just because it's so unsuspecting, it's really innocent looking, and you just would never guess that a cute little doll like that could be so evil and have something demonic attached to it. The true story of Annabelle actually starts back in 1970 when a doll was purchased from a store by a mother who was giving it to her young 20-something-year-old daughter who was a nursing student. Now, this girl lived in a small apartment with another girl who was also a nursing student, and when she received this doll, she absolutely loved it. She kind of used it as like a decorative item, often leaving it on her bed on display, but soon some weird things started to happen around this doll that left the girls questioning what exactly was going on. Now, the first thing that these girls who were living alongside the Annabelle doll started to notice was that the doll seemed to move on its own. And this started as really subtle things where the girl would leave Annabelle on her bed and she would purposely cross the legs, but when she came back they were uncrossed or the arms had moved. And it kind of progressed more and more to where Annabelle would be found in totally different rooms or totally different places to where she had been left.
When we came home, she was sitting in the hallway, but we had left her in the spare room.
And there's even one instance where the girls found Annabelle in a kneeling position, which is actually physically impossible for the doll to replicate when they later tried to put the doll into a kneeling position. There was also a couple of other strange things that were happening. So they also found these little crude handwritten notes all throughout their home. These were often drawn in crayon or pencil and said things like "help me." They appeared to be written in a child's handwriting. The weirdest part about that was though that they didn't have this type of pencil or crayon in the house or the parchment paper that the notes were written on. So they thought, oh, maybe they're coming from outside of the house. But then the creepiest thing happened with Annabelle. The owner came home one day and found this red, wet substance on Annabelle's hands and her chest. And it appeared very much to be blood. And that is completely sinister. They had no idea what was going on with this doll. And they thought, oh yeah, we better get some help with this one. So they called in the assistance of a psychic. So these girls managed to get in contact with a medium, and the medium agreed to come into their apartment and help them conduct a seance. And this was to kind of try and communicate with spirits or entities, energies, or whatever was going on with Annabelle. They really had no idea what was up with this doll or why all this strange activity had been occurring. So during the seance, this medium actually picked up on a young female spirit that went by the name of Annabelle Higgins. And Annabelle's story was basically that she was killed in the area and murdered. Her body was found in a empty field, which is actually where the apartment complex that these two young women were living in was built on top of. Now, supposedly the spirit of Annabelle had been hanging around that area since her death, looking for some young people that she connected to and related with, who she could be accepted by and cared for, because she was quite lonely. And now that was a pretty heartbreaking story for these two young student nurses to hear. So they thought, you know, why not? We'll adopt this young female spirit. We'll adopt Annabelle. And basically the conclusion of this seance was that they invited Annabelle into their home, into their lives, and even to occupy that Raggedy Ann doll, which from then forward became known as Annabelle. Now, although these girls were able to reach out and make contact, communicate with this so-called spirit of Annabelle and feel as though they had helped her and understood her, the activity surrounding the doll continued and actually began to take a far darker turn. Now things started to get a lot more dangerous, and this dark activity was kind of centered on one of their very close male friends who used to come over the apartment a lot. Now this guy had always had a bit of a weird vibe from the Annabelle doll, and he didn't really like the doll, and he was pretty open with telling his friends, hey, there's something off about this doll. It's not right, and I think that you should get rid of it. And I feel like this could very well have been why this negative energy kind of targeted this guy with attacks. He actually was attacked. Now, the first negative event to take place was one night he was sleeping over the girl's apartment, and he claimed to wake up in the middle of the night and see the Annabelle doll kind of looking at him from his feet, slowly came up towards his body, wrapped its arms around his neck and started to strangle him. Now, he said that he passed out, and when he awoke in the morning, he felt like there's no way this could be a dream. That was too real and too intense. He was actually being hurt and suffocated by this doll, and he expressed his concern about this to the girls, but it wasn't really enough for him to stop visiting them and hanging around their home. Now, the next event that took place is actually the most dramatic one that caused the girls to seek further help with the Annabelle doll. So it occurred one night. This guy and one of the girls was at home, and they were kind of getting ready for a road trip that they were taking. So they're reading over some maps, and they heard a bit of a disturbance in the room where Annabelle was. So they thought, oh, like, we should go check that out. Maybe someone is breaking into the house. They opened the door, switched on the lights, and nothing was out of place. Like, nothing was disturbed. The only thing that was a little bit odd was they found Annabelle in the corner of the room on the floor. It seemed as though someone had just thrown the doll down to the ground. So the guy entered the room to approach the doll just to suss out what was up with it, maybe pick her up, put her back on the bed. And he was stopped dead in his tracks because he was actually attacked. So he felt this sharp sensation on his chest and he went to grab it. Blood started seeping through his shirt, and he had been clawed by an invisible entity. So he had 3 long scratches going down his chest and 4 across his chest. And these scratches were deep and painful, almost as if they had been burnt into his skin. Strangely enough though, they did heal up pretty quick within the next 1 to 2 days. But it was disturbing enough that it concerned both of the girls and their friend, who was like, okay, we need to reach out to the church and get some assistance with this doll. There's something seriously evil about it. There's no way that a little, child spirit could have attacked our friend like that. So these 2 young ladies and their friend were like, oh, okay, let's reach out to the church. Like, this cannot be a good thing that is associated with Annabelle and that's happening in our home. So they reached out to the church, and the church referred them on because it wasn't really something that they knew how to deal with. And when there's something demonic and crazy like this going on, who are you gonna call? You're gonna call the Warrens. This is how Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved with the Annabelle case. If you don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are, they're very well-known paranormal investigators, demonologists. Like, they've dealt with a lot of massive cases in the paranormal field, Annabelle being one of them. So the Warrens came to visit the girls. They spoke to them at length about the doll and what had been happening. Really good interview led them to believe that Annabelle had a demonic entity attached to it. And the biggest mistake that the girls made was during the seance was actually inviting this demon into their lives and giving it the permission that it was seeking to enter the doll of Annabelle.
It was a big mistake acknowledging this doll. And through that, the inhuman spirit tricked you. You gave it permission to infest your lives.
And they say that this demon's motives was probably to get close to the girls, scare them, and then eventually possess them and, try and kill them. That's what demons do. They're evil. Now, the Warrens helped the young girls and this guy be blessed, the house blessed, and they actually removed the Annabelle doll from their possession and said, hey, we will take this doll for you, we will keep it somewhere safe where she cannot continue harming you or other people out there in the general public. So it's said that as the Warrens removed the Annabelle doll from this home, they actually started straight away to experience their own troubles with this entity. They purposely avoided, driving down freeways on their way home and kind of took the longer back way because it felt safer. But their car was stalling multiple times and kind of verging to want to go off of the road or into oncoming traffic. And this was only stopped after Ed turned around into the back seat to his, passenger and flicked a bunch of holy water onto the Annabelle doll. Then they were able to get the doll home safely. But the strange occurrences with the doll did not stop there. Now, after Ed and Lorraine Warren brought the Annabelle doll back to their house, a lot of strange activity continued to happen. The doll levitated, it continued to move around, and it really scared a lot of people that came into contact with the doll. There's even a story of a priest who came to visit and kind of mocked the doll in a way, saying, hey, there's no demon that is greater than God or more powerful than God. And then as he left the Warrens' house, he was driving home and he got himself into a very nasty car accident. He was actually pretty lucky to walk away with his life, and apparently he recounted this incident to Ed Warren later and said that the last thing he can remember seeing is looking into his rearview mirror and seeing a vision of Annabelle behind him before he crashed. So that's quite frightening, and that's probably what caused the Warrens to take all of the precautions that they did with the Annabelle doll. So because all this crazy stuff continued to happen, the Warrens realized that they actually had a pretty dangerous item and they wanted to contain the entity best that they could. So they put it into a room which was attached to their house with a lot of other objects that they had accumulated throughout the years of investigating and researching and helping people deal with demonic attachments or negative spirits. So they put it into a room with a lot of other cursed objects and items or haunted objects. Annabelle specifically, they housed in a special case which has, glass in front of it. It has crosses displayed on it, saints, it has holy verses inscribed into it. They get it blessed, I think, monthly by a priest, even to this day, because they do not want what is attached to Annabelle getting loose. Now, even with all of these precautions that the Warrens were taking with Annabelle, it's said that she was still able to somehow kill a person. Now, the story with this goes is that a bunch of college students came in to visit the Warrens Occult Museum. And there was one guy in particular who thought it was a little bit of a joke and kind of went up to the Annabelle doll's case after learning the stories of her and proceeded to mock her, almost challenging her, like he was knocking on the glass window and asking the demon to scratch him. And I guess Annabelle didn't like that. Ed Warren was there and he kind of interjected and said, hey, you can't be doing that here, mate, you need to leave. So this guy left with his girlfriend, and just hours later, as they were driving home from the Warrens Occult Museum, he crashed his bike and he was killed instantly. Now, the curious thing about this is that his girlfriend luckily managed to survive. She was hospitalized for a good year, so she was quite hurt from this incident, but she recalls the last thing that happened before they crashed was that they were mocking and continuing to laugh about the Annabelle doll. And that is just so scary and crazy. And of course, there's no way to know or say for sure, yes, that wasn't just a random accident, it was associated with Annabelle. But a lot of people do believe that the demon attached to the Annabelle doll may have caused that man's death. Now, even to this day, people remain interested about the legends of the Annabelle doll. And I mean, all these movies coming out about Annabelle. A couple of years ago, Zach Bagans had the real Annabelle doll come and visit his museum so that he could investigate her on Ghost Adventures for Halloween. And that was so awesome. It was a story that's really intrigued and interested me, so I really wanted to sit down and talk about Annabelle on my channel with you guys. Now, I am super excited to see Annabelle Comes Home. I probably will be going out this weekend to see it. I want to hear your thoughts on the movie as well, guys. Whether you've seen it, are going to see it, I want to know what your thoughts are. So in this installment, basically the Warrens bring Annabelle home. They lock her up in their little occult museum full of all their haunted, spooky artifacts. And their young daughter gets in there with the babysitters. The babysitter's friend unleashes Annabelle. And I think that this is going to be a really cool movie because it's going to show you a lot of the other artifacts that are in that room along with Annabelle. And oh man, that trailer, it looks seriously scary, guys. I cannot wait. I really do hope one day that I get to visit the Warrens Occult Museum. It's actually a dream of mine, and a couple of YouTubers that I subscribe to and watch their content got to visit recently. So I'm going to link their videos down below. So they got to visit the Warrens Occult Museum. That's Britty44 and Hayley Reese, and they've both got videos out about it. So if you guys want to see inside the real museum, can check out their videos. It's actually pretty cool. Another thing is that unfortunately both Ed and Lorraine Warren have passed on now, which is very sad. Now, Lorraine recently passed, and I think that that was a pretty big blow to the whole paranormal community because she's such a legend. Like, she pioneered a lot of stuff and did a lot of work that was really important to this field. So I mean, this video is just, you know, dedicated to them and their legend, and I'm sure like a lot of people are still going to continue appreciating their work the more that we talk about it or learn about it, even through these Hollywood movie adaptations. Now, I know that this video is a little bit different to the videos that I normally produce, so please let me know if you did enjoy it down below. Leave me a comment. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share. If you want to do a little bit more reading on Annabelle, every video that I make, I publish a blog post along with it. So I've gone into a lot of depth talking about the legends of Annabelle and the history over on amyscrypt.com. Go and check that out if you want to learn more. You guys are also able to follow me at Amy's Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on Patreon. Thank you for watching, Crypt Keepers. Until next time.